Thank you so very much. All right. So thank you so much once again for coming to Ace Creative Academy, which is a training academy that is designed and is built for those that are just joining to drive relevant conversation and to build creative and tech professional to be relevant and sought after in the creative and tech ecosystem. Now, one thing we do is that we have what we call a physical academy that is located in number 29 Abiodun Street, Shomolu, Lagos, where we train creative and tech professionals on graphic design, web development, software development, both front end and back end, UI, UX, video editing, and photography. If you want to know more about the training sessions that we have, all you need to do is to visit the website. The CEO, Mr. Anu, and the programs director of the academy is going to be dropping the link right away, and he's going to be dropping the link for the training. Namdi is saying that he's close to his apartment, so Namdi, you can check us out. He's going to be dropping the link of our website there. Then beyond the fact that we basically have a physical academy, we have what we call a community. So we have a community of creative and tech professionals where we have over 1,000 creative and tech professionals, graphic artists, web designers, animators, video editors, photographers coming together to have a community. And across all our platforms, we have 3 WhatsApp groups and 1 Telegram group. And in this community, if you're a creative professional that have a problem, probably with a particular design, a concept, a particular software, one thing we do in the community is once we drop that problem. We've even had cases of people that need 1 or 2 things, and assistance were given from the community. So it's just a group of creative and tech professionals growing together. Now, beyond us collaborating as a community, one thing we also do in the community is that we also post various job opportunities. And in the last 3 years that the community has been established, we've had over 100 job opportunities that people are taking advantage of, and they are working in right now. I remember a community member sometimes last week was still buzzing me that the job I got, I'm already growing with the company and I'm doing very well. So one thing we're doing as a community is not just to grow together, we also drop various opportunities for people that need to be in the community. One of the vision that we have basically is that we're going to have crops of creative and tech professionals over the few years that are going to be doing massively well and causing major impact globally. But like I said earlier on, once you're joining this meeting, let's try as much as possible to follow all the necessary ethics by muting our mic. Please, let's do everything that we can to mute our mic so that we don't distract people. I'm trying to figure out who this person is. That is disturbing the meeting, but I really can't get that person right now. So please, let's endeavor and try as much as possible to mute our mic. So today, do what you can to join the WhatsApp group and the Telegram group. Mr. Anu has dropped it on the link in the session right now. Now, for those that are going to be watching this training session via YouTube, we're going to also be dropping the link at the bottom. And also, if you're watching this training session via YouTube, let's try as much as possible to 1 minute. Let me just mute this person. All right, for those that are going to be watching, please let's ensure that we mute our mic, please. Let's ensure that we mute our mic so that we don't disturb the session. All right, now for those that are going to be watching via YouTube, the link for today's training is going to be dropped at the section below right now at the section of the YouTube. Now, beyond that, if you're also going to be watching via YouTube, don't forget to also subscribe for our YouTube channel. Is very important. Why? Because you can get updated notification on everything that we do in the academy and whenever we upload latest videos, which are going to be doing concurrently. Okay, now having said that, today's session is going to be a bit practical. We're going to be having an amazing woman who's going to be training us, and I'm going to be dropping the floor for so she can start our session right away on understanding brand identity, understanding what brand identity. So let's put our hands together virtually, as I'm going to be inviting right now while I read our profile, Bolutife, Awakan, while she turned on a video, and I basically spotlight her. Thank you so much for coming in, Bolutife. It's an amazing privilege having you. So she is going to be taking us on a journey on an amazing. Say hello to everybody, Boli.
Hi everyone, good evening. How are we doing today? Happy Sunday to everybody. I hope you're all feeling very good. I'm excited to be part of this, rub minds with you all. I mean, I'm not a teacher here. We'll be doing this together. So yeah, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me, Mr. Ademola.
All right. Okay. Fantastic. Okay. So I'm just going to bring her profile. She's a woman that I've been following her works over the years online, and I'm pretty. I respect the work she does and a couple of things that she's pushing out there, basically. And she's also a community member that we're not just spotlighting, but we respect the great things she's doing in the industry. So Bolutife Awakan is a senior brand and marketing designer with over 7 years of experience, leveraging strategy, innovation, creative approach to develop compelling brands. She has worked with major projects in diverse industry locally and internationally, including entertainment, fintech, martech, and SaaS, that software for our service, developing and deploying meaningful strategies to create unique virtual systems and thriving brands, meaning that the designs that she's doing make brands thrive. She's passionate about branding, a mentor by excellence, and an inspiration to many, including I myself personally. She has written a number of brand resources and spoken at several events. She when she's not designing, she watches movies, nice, buys new footwear, great. I'm sure that there are stickers, and she creates another Apple playlist, awesome. All right, so I'm going to be dropping when she starts speaking her social media handle on the chat session so that we can basically all follow her on social media to see how it works and to see the great things that what she is doing. So thank you so much for responding to our invitation. And thank you so much, everybody, for coming today. We really appreciate your presence. One thing I can promise you and assure you that this session is going to not just be transforming for your business, it's going to be expository for yourself, whichever field you are. One thing I know is that if once you're in the creative industry, one of the foundation of the creative industry is actually design. If you want to be an animator or graphic artist, a web designer, the foundation is design. You understand what I'm saying right now? So a good understanding of brand identity would help you at whatever level of design that you are, or even in your business. Understanding brand identity would help you, especially brand design would help you in your business. So Bolutife, enough of me talking. People came to listen to you and hear you. Over to you. Please, if you have any question, please drop it in the question and answer session. I'm going to be coming in at the end of the session, and myself and Bolutife, our prestigious Bolutife, we will be handling the question and answers together. We will not take your time. It's going to be a short training session, and you're going to have an amazing time. Tife, over to you.
All right, thank you so much. Please confirm that you can hear me and hear me clearly.
Yes, we can.
All right. So without further ado, I think we should just get right into it, right? So thank you, Mr. Ademola, for the opportunity again and for reading my bio. I mean, there's nothing extraordinary about that, right? But I mean, we're all just here to learn and grow together. So before we dive in properly into using our softwares and all, so what I always make a thing for me is I always tell people that it is not just enough to know how to use the software to create shapes that become logo. It's very important to understand the nitty-gritty. You need to understand why you're creating the logo. You need to understand the essence of that logo. In the first place, you also need to understand why you are contracted to do a logo in the first place, right? So you must know your place as a designer and where you stand in the business, right? So it's very important that you are not just developing a logo and sending to a client for them to just do whatever they want. You should know that you're a custodian of the brand and that every decision that you make into creating that logo is very important and vital to every other decision that will go on and on in the, with the brand, with the company, much more after you have handed off the project, right? So so you need to put your place in a situation where you know that you are a decision maker and that you stand on your ground with certain things so as to establish your authority. Okay, so so yeah, this will now lead us to understanding branding, understanding what a brand is, understanding brand identity, right? So before you I don't know what you think when people ask you, what do you think, what is a brand, or what do you think a brand is? Um, what's your typical response? If you can put it in the chat, so that we can make this very interactive. What comes to your mind when somebody say what is a brand, what is branding, and all of that, so we know where we are. And then I know I have geniuses in the house, so I don't dwell too much on this part, so I can quickly move. I'm looking at the charts, guys. When you say what's a brand, when you say what's brand identity, what comes to your mind? So that we can rub minds together here. I'm also here to learn. Nobody's talking. Okay.
I guess everybody's shy.
Yeah, very soon. We'll all remove that shyness. Okay, so
Awesome.
not to waste our time. So let's just when we talk about brand, what a brand is, right? It's brand is not just about the logo or the identity. Identity is just a part of a brand. And now a brand is about feelings. A brand is not okay, I can see. And says, I think it projects what the company stands for. Chukuma says, branding, in my opinion, is the first thing that comes to a potential customer's mind when they think of a company. Okay, we're also very correct, right? So branding, I always try to, cite Martin Newman's definition of branding that says that branding is a person's gut feeling, about a person, an organization, or a product, which is very valid because the feeling that is inspired in me when I hear of a particular brand, when I hear of a particular name, that is what their brand is, right? So if I'm feeling excited, if I'm feeling funky because somebody mentions a brand, if I'm feeling inspired because somebody mentioned Nike, is because that's what their brand is about. So you need to have the essence of a brand. Now, while talking about brand and then branding and all of those things, they're all related, right? So a brand, once you understand what a brand is, then you can now go into what branding is. Now, branding is, on the other hand, is the process of shaping those feelings that you want people to feel when they come in contact with a brand, right? I don't know if we got that. It's the process of shaping all the plenty strategies that you're putting in place, all the plenty brainstorming sessions or the research that you're doing, those things, and the way you implement them is that process that is called branding, right? The different things that you do, the way people interact with your signage, your social media posts, the way you communicate, your messaging, and all of that. There are things that are embedded in your branding. So branding is the process of creating a brand, right? And one thing I also want us to understand is that a brand is an expectation of an experience, right? A brand is an expectation of an experience. An expectation, in this case, you can say an expectation is a belief that something will happen. Sorry. An expectation is a belief that something will happen. It could be based on certain opinions, perspective, or just a feeling that somebody has formed about a brand, right? And that expectation must be met in order to create a wonderful experience for the person. So before you create a brand, a very powerful brand, it means that the experiences that people have with that brand is top notch, is amazing, makes them feel very good, right? That's when people say they're successful, it's a successful brand. Pardon me. So I mean, so how do you now what do you now mean by an experience? So an experience, a company's brand is not just the logo. Now, this is where the identity comes in, is the experience part that the brand identity comes in, because the experiences are formed based on the interaction of an individual with the brand, right? I don't know if we got that. So now the identity, those are the physical and tangible things, the visual assets or things that people can interact with, that eventually now forms their expression or their experience, that now tells them what kind of brand that it is. So, I mean, as a brand designer, you need to understand these things, because these are the things that will help as also to communicate with the stakeholders, or you're communicating with the clients themselves. You'll be able to sell the idea that you have, the idea that you have put together for the brand. As in, if it's in the case of a logo now, or what have you. All right. So can you still hear me? I'm just trying to confirm that you guys are still here with me. All right. So now moving on to pardon me. So there are some very good reasons why people take branding very important. Now, some of the key points that I have here is that it creates brand awareness, it sets your brand apart, it helps consumers connect, it delivers a customer experience, and it empowers people that you call employees. Now, to every business should take branding very seriously, even if you have a creative business, because I mean, that's the theme of this training, right? How to thrive, how to grow your creative business. A creative business as a person, even if you are just the only one, as a freelancer, you need to also take cognizance of branding and how you represent yourself out there, how you represent yourself, how you relate with stakeholders, how you relate with your clients, and all of that. Do you understand? So there's some certain logos that when you see, it's just, I mean, you get it straight that uh this is what this person is all about. Even if can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear
Yes, we
you.
can.
All right. Okay, so now we have to take a good look at some of the world best logos, as we call them. Look at Nike, look at Coca-Cola is a timeless logo, right? Because right from only God knows how many decades that logo has been. Somebody talking?
No, don't worry, you can continue. I think it's those that are coming in that they need their mic up. But don't worry, we're working on it.
Okay. Thank you, sir. All right. So there's some logos that just come to your mind. Once you take a look, you already kind of love the brand, So that is a lot of hard work, no matter how simple a logo is. Now, most of these logos that we call very successful brands, very successful logos today, they're really very simple. You look at them and you'll be like, what did they do? I can create this in 5 minutes. Have you ever felt like that? Like you see the logo of a very great company, I feel like, yeah, this logo is so simple. I can create it in 2 minutes. I can create it. I can close my eyes and create this logo. For example, Nat Geographic, their logo is just basically square with stroke. Like you can literally create this in 30 seconds if you know how to use the tool. Just use Illustrator and then you're there, right? But a lot of thinking, a lot of thought went into that. The process was very tedious. I read the case study of the people that actually designed that logo. It was very tedious. They went through, target audience. They had to do a survey to know a lot of things about how to better represent the brand, right? So a lot of work goes into all of these logos, no matter how simple they are. Now, this part is what we call the strategy part. When you already know the thought process, you know the creative direction, you know what is best for the company and how best to represent the company using basic shapes that we all just call logos today. Like it's just basically combining shapes together that makes up a logo, right? Very simple, but it makes sense to have a story. So as a brand identity designer, there's certain things that you cannot do without a storytelling skill. It's a soft skill, right? But you need to learn it. You can say that I'm not a copywriter, I'm not a I get it. Right? So because the way you sell a logo to a person is different from the way you sell an identity to a person. A logo is just a part, a sub part of a brand identity. There's several other things that make up an identity system. For example, the logo is just one part of it. The colors, the typography, the image style, the graphic patterns, or other graphic shapes that come in there as assets, they all shape and come together as one body that is called an identity system today, right? So when you're presenting a logo, you can just present the logo and say, take, is your logo, have it, you know? Yeah, which is what we did. I did that too when I was starting out. And I just conjure a logo in Photoshop and find a way to make it look fine, and then just put it together and just send JPEG to the client and be like, this is the logo you asked for. Take it and let me have peace and give me my money, right? But yeah, as time progresses, as time goes on, you realize that you could do so much more than just sending a JPEG file to a client to say, this is your logo, pay me my 10K. Right? So it is so much more than that. So you need to have storytelling skills. You need to know how to present. You need to present the logo in a way that they feel very connected to what you have done, right? They feel very connected. Now I'm trying to time myself so that I can finish all of this part before 5:30, so we can, move on to the part that will take most of our time in this training, obviously. So storytelling part is important. You need to have marketing skills. This one is very important. You need to also find a way to build connections and tell stories. People love stories. So when you come with an idea that this is how I came up with this was the rationale behind this, and this is how it comes, it aligns with your brand's mission and vision and the essence of this logo, the clients will find a way to better understand it. Like, okay, I can see where this guy is coming from. So what this does for you is you have less time wastage, because at the end of the day, you find find that you are speaking the mind of the client. And I'm going to go through the steps that you it's going to work hand in hand. So I hope you have your Illustrator open and ready, right? Sorry, excuse me. So some of the characteristics of a good logo: it must be simple and memorable, right? It must be versatile, it must be relevant, timeless, it must be appropriate, okay? So you cannot use a logo that is very, very, how do I put it? So you want to create a logo for a brand, for a bank rather, and you're using Comic Sans or a very playful font. I hope I'm not shaking tables with the Comic Sans as I mentioned anyways, but let's just move on. So that was just to give you an idea of what it means. So it needs to be appropriate, it needs to be unique, because it's an identifier of a brand, right? Just the way I posted on LinkedIn earlier today, that the way somebody recognizes you by your face is the same way people recognize companies by their logos and their identity system, right? So it also needs to be scalable, right? And what this means is for both small and large formats, it must work well. So it's not like when they print it on the shirt, very small, tiny, maybe 3-inch badge kind of print on the shirt, a lot of detail is lost because it is not scalable, right? So it must also be well designed. You have to pay attention to typography, to composition, color, and other design elements, and the way it relates to the overall brand strategy, the way it relates to the overall design, right? So there are different types of logo. For those who don't know, I'll just run through it. You can also read it online. I mean, it's becoming like it's one of the first knowledge you should be seeking as a brand identity designer. Know different types of logos, right? So there's the word mark. Example is Coca-Cola, where you have the words as the logo itself, right? Then you also have the letter mark. When you have maybe the initials of the logo, example NTA, Nigerian Television Authority. I hope I'm right. I've not watched NTA in a long time, but that's off the top of my head, right? That can help you. So the abbreviations, basically, you create that into a very nice logo. That's a letter mark. And then there's a symbol logo or an iconic logo, which is a graphic representation. For example, you have Twitter, right? Just a graphic representation of the brand. Okay, so it's a standalone element. And another type of logo is the combination mark, right? The combination mark it comprises of both the logo, like the icon, rather, it comprises of the symbol and the text, which is the form that most logos take these days, right? And then you have emblems like school badges and all of that, like Starbucks logo, yeah. And then you have abstract, something like what Pepsi does, right? The graphic representation also that it does not depict a specific object. Basically, you just have several patterns in there or several shapes. They're just very beautiful, and they all come together. And there's the mascot logo as well. Lastly, it's more like an illustrator character, often used by brands targeting children. When you see children's stuff a lot, you see very mascotish logo in all of that. Example is Red Bull. Red Bull is used target sports people, so they are very relatable, right? So for a design process now, when we are talking about understanding branding, you need to understand the design process as well. So I'm sorry for those who are not very this is not a foundational course or a training like that. You need to have some form of design understanding for this training. I mean, for some of the things that we'll be doing here to make sense. Okay. So for a typical design process will involve something like understanding the brief, right? There's a creative brief. You get it from the client, where they state the objective, the requirements, and then you clarify any questions that you might have, right? So in this part of the world, I don't think that people are big on creative briefs. I mean, like, say 80% of the projects I've worked on have not come to me with briefs, and I know that a lot of us can also relate. People will just send you WhatsApp message and be like, hello, ma, we need you to do logo for us, right? How many of us have collected brief before? I don't want to shake tables, but we don't collect brief. We just collect WhatsApp messages, right? or short emails. Just, I saw your number on so, and I'm contacting you because I want a logo for my brand, right? Okay, so that is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. I just had to put that out there. Articulate says, after I've asked, Nigerian clients know what to brief is. Okay, yeah. We're all in this industry together, and I understand these things. Right. So there's a way to make it work out for you, because without a brief, what are you expected to do? Somebody just says, hey, I want you to do a logo for what brand should I use now? Maybe a gym brand. I'm opening my gym next week and I want to do a logo. Can you run it in 2 days, sharp, and be like, Sapa. And then say, okay, bros, I can do it. I will do it, anything that you can, right? So there are processes to these things, and these processes are not for people who think that they are just cliches. They're not. They are going to make life a lot easier for you. Sorry, excuse me. So they're going to make life a lot easier for you, because you will not end up wasting your own time. You will end up doing what the clients really want. It will almost be like you are reading their mind. And this is the way to do this. There's a cheat code, guys. And it's called a questionnaire. So when you don't get a creative brief, what you do is create your own set of questions that you think can make up a robust and comprehensible creative brief. So this I don't know, maybe much later when I start to share my screen, then I'll show you an example of one and sort of questions that can be in there, so as not to waste your time, right? So you have questions like they need to put the literal brand name they want. Then you know things like what kind of brand is it? They give you a brief description of what the brand is. They give you what the target audiences are. They give you what their competitors their competition is. They tell you what their unique selling point is. They tell you things of like how they want the logo to look, what type of logo it should be, if it's a combination mark they want or the other types. So you don't end up doing a letter mark and they're like, no, I wanted something with an icon to get. I can see Victor icon here. All right, so the icon, right? And then you end up roaming around in circles and end up getting frustrated. So this is how to avoid it, right? And at this first stage of creating that brief for yourself, if the client is how do I put this? If the client is strong-headed and doesn't want to do that, I mean, you should start to profile your own clients and the kind of project that you want to work with, really, so that you don't have to, I mean, waste your time and not be productive, or that you don't express yourself fully, or that the clients themselves do not understand you. Okay, so the creative brief is very important, and you need this to be able to interpret the process of, I mean, the logo as well and the identity. Right. Number two is to do research. I cannot emphasize this enough. The research is very important. So I was working on an identity a couple of days ago. It's a very new brand. Just for an example, it's a new brand, and they're the first in the industry. So it's not like you can go somewhere to go and get inspiration, right? For a very new brand, who's like the first of its kind, right? So that kind of project is very tough. You have to dig deeper, do surveys, do a lot of things to be able to get first-hand information on how best to approach the project, right? So you need to review the client's objective. You need to research the target audience. You need to research. That's why you need to add it to the questionnaire. You need to research your competitors. You need to research the overall market. That's the industry in which the brand operates and exists, right? This research will inform the direction of your visual identity. The reason why we are always asked them to put competitors is so that you don't, because we're trying to create something unique here, you don't end up creating something that is, very similar to what the competitor is doing, similar to what a competitor has done or what they're using. So you don't use the same colors, you don't use the same typography, you don't use the same okay, you don't use the same what do you call it now, visual direction. I mean, what we're running for here is uniqueness, right? So it's very important. Now you also, the next step now is to conceptualize. Now for research, there's some places that you can go. I think that they are common knowledge now, but I'll still mention them. So places like Behance, places like Pinterest, places like Dribble. You can just search in some of the keywords or something based on the project that you're handling, and then you see what other people have done. It's not to copy other people, right? It's just to have an inspiration of how best to approach the problem that you are trying to solve. Okay, so when you go through other people's work, it opens your mind to what is possible. It opens your mind to what is doable, and that's why we're always let me just chip this in. So it's very important to feed yourself with creative work. If you're a brand identity designer, follow people who do amazing work and feed your eyes with them, with their work, like on a daily basis. Because when you see a design that busts your head and you be like, wow, so this is achievable. And then in your own next project, you're thinking wild. You're thinking, what will I do and will make people say that of me as well? So it's very important. In creative industry, you only do as far as you can see, right? You might have an idea and that is not entirely unique, but I mean, it's
What is the one?
It's sitting on the basis of what somebody else has done, and that's what kind of gives it the credibility that it needs, right? So to be creative and creatively creative, you need to feed your eyes with other people's creative work, right? So the next step is to conceptualize. You brainstorm ideas based on the research that you've done, the brief. So now that you understand what the client wants, the objective, the kind of things that that they're expecting, the deliverables that they want you to do, to deliver. It's just a logo. Do they want some mock-ups? Do they want things, tangible things also printed and all of that? So you need to have a comprehensible idea of everything that you want. And once you have that, then you now conceptualize the design, initial design concept. So what I do at this stage is to, once I create, I just sketch things. So you can sketch on paper. I don't like paper that much, but paper is usually very advised. Or you can sketch on a freehand tool or any tool, any app that makes you draw freehand drawing, right? So you can just sketch ideas. I sketch anything that comes to my head. I mean, and then I give timelines that are reasonable because at a point, I just sit down on a project and then you don't know where the idea is coming from. You don't know what you're going to do. You're just there in front of a computer and nothing is coming, right? So it makes you, like, sometimes I just go up and down. In fact, it could be up to a week and then I'm just scanning through some things. Maybe I'm just going to work and then something catches my eye that opens my mind to a visual direction that I think can work for the brand. And then it just makes sense, right? So conceptualizing that aspect, that part is usually the part that takes the longest, so to speak, because you need to always, you need to be cohesive enough, put all the ideas that you've been gathering together to make something out of that, which is usually the most tedious part, really. And so once you sketch and then you convert into a high fidelity design. Basically, what I do at this point is to create, after sketching, create in Adobe Illustrator, and then share with the client without color. I mean, you've noticed I've not mentioned anything like color or anything like that. Without color or anything, I just black and white, which is some of the things that we'll do practically here after this. So that gives them, I mean, I'm trying to remove the basis of bias, right? So there are people who, if I use different colors for different ideas or different logos and present it, it could cloud their judgment. If they are drawn to, if their favorite color, for example, is blue, and I use blue in one and use other colors in the others, they may be drawn to that blue, not because it's the best or it best interprets what they're looking for, but because they have a bias to blue. So I sort of, in that initial stage, remove that basis of bias, right? So they can look at it objectively, the same color, everything is black and white. Just look at it and tell me the one that best resonates with you at first sight, basically. So this is the part that is usually very tedious to conceptualize. And then you now present, right? You present, you take, I mean, you can brainstorm in the conceptualizing stage, you can brainstorm and do as many things. Like if you look at some of my sketches and all of that might have is crazy because you just sometimes will not even make sense to you. Like some things don't make sense to me. I'm like, are you planning to create this into a logo or something? What are you trying to do here? Because it's very ugly, or maybe it just doesn't make sense. But I like to exercise my brain. I like to exercise my hands to just scribble something down. Just you don't know where to, and it always happens to me that is when I'm looking for all those ideas, I don't see them. Once I'm sketching, one drawing will just come to my head. I draw it, and then it makes sense and aligns with the brand, and voila, it always works like that for me, right? So that's one of the things reasons why it's very important. Okay, so then you now present and refine the strongest concepts out of all those very crazy ideas, almost 100 sketches that you have done, trying to refine and all of that. You bring them into your preferred software, and then you create something, to share with the client. Now, at this stage, you need to consider how the visual identity will be used in various contexts. Remember, I mentioned versatility and scalability when I was considering talking to us about characteristics of a good logo, right? So in this case, you need to also put that into consideration when you're creating anything, sketching or the logo, right? So it must be usable on a very wide range of things, on the website, on the mobile app, on marketing materials, on the flyer, on the t-shirts, you know, it must work well. Like they shouldn't have a problem with it. That's what makes it a good logo, right? So, and then you refine it further and further, and then you move on. Once they're happy with that, you know, you present it to the clients, they're happy with it, they pick a particular one that best resonates with them, and then you go back, prepare, add colors and all those other things to it, and then you prepare the final files, and then you deliver. You present, you hand off the project to the client, right? So during all of this, there are other things that I think that is important that we there are things that is important that we know. So I'm going to quickly touch on color and psychology, basically. I know that this is also common knowledge to most of us, because, but I still mention it because it's very important to the process, I mean, the course of things as we discuss here. And it will help you make sense of the things, what we're going to create after now, right? So colors evoke different emotions. Colors are emotional things, right? They're emotional beings, as I like to call them, right? And they're very psychological. They evoke psychological responses due to cultural and individual associations, right? So over time, these associations have been put together by, you know, people who have come and gone before us, long before my great grandfather. No. So those things have been existing. They've tried to permutate and combine and everything, and then now we have come up with something that is usable for everybody. So some color associations that, you know, you can make use of, for example, is the red. We have been told incites passion, energy, love, anger, excitement, and then on the negative side, danger. If you look at a series of things that designs and identities that we've created, if you just try to think of things that you've seen. When people say don't enter here, danger free zone, or something danger, you always see red, right? And then when you see fast food restaurants, they use red a lot because red is known to incite passion and hunger, right? It's always excited to want to eat. When you see red in the fast food, oh my God, you always want to eat, right? And then when you see orange, it evokes warmth, happiness, creativity, enthusiasm. And when you see yellow, it's happy, it's optimistic. And then they also use yellow a lot for caution. You see all those, when you watch American movies, like I do a lot, you see that police thing, when there's a crime scene and all of that, they use red for that. And then it's a caution sign, right? And then there's friendliness in yellow. Now, all of these things can mean different things in other cultures. Like I've been told that when we, red is used for love and all of that. In a certain country, I can't remember now, I think it's in Asia, red is actually like something bad, like an opposite of love. There. So when you're also creating, you need to put that at the back of your mind, right? To understand, that's why in-depth research is important. Understand the culture that you're creating for, right? So you don't end up going to create something that will be seen as rude or not appropriate. Okay, so green usually evokes growth, calmness, harmony, and then blue, is associated with calmness, also with trust, with security. And then when it is too dark, it can be associated with sadness. Now, all of these colors, as much as they have positive side, they also have negative sides, right? So it just depends on the shade. Now, the hue that you use for a brand should have, you should know which shade is also appropriate. So a lot of things go into creating an identity. It's not just creating shades. You get it, right? So purple incites luxury, mystery, spirituality, royalty, wisdom, what else? Wealth. We associate wealth with purple, right? And then black, you have sophistication, power, elegance, and sadness. It can also mean sadness. So you also need to be careful how you use these colors. Then white, as is associated with purity, cleanliness, innocence, peace. And then gray is usually like an accent color, right? Is neutral, is stable, is mature, and is dull. Okay, so all of these different colors, it's important to note that these associations, they are not universal, like I said before, and they can vary depending on the context. I know that there are general beliefs concerning these associations, this color psychology and all of that, but it's also dependent on culture and personal experiences of the people that you're creating them for. Now, when I was mentioning part of the process, preparing final files, right? So there are so I struggled with this a lot. So I think it's something I need to mention, right? When I was starting out as well. Like I mentioned, I was just in JPEGs and all of that, but that is not appropriate, right? If you're creating, you need to prepare the final files in a way, in design files that are required, right? Or that may be useful. Remember, when you are creating these designs, you will not be with the brand forever. You're moving on. You're a freelancer. Even if you're an in-house designer, right? You will move on. You will do other things. Live your life and everything like that. So you need to make life easier for everybody. It's not like you have ended off a project and forgotten about it, and they're calling you 5 years later to say, bros, we need a vector file of this logo. We need to do something, and they say it's not working, and all of that. You just make everything work well. Now, there's this software that people use, people who can afford them, they use it because preparing this file is actually a lot of work, because you need to prepare them in several lockups. You need to create the icons, you need to separate, like, even if it's a combination logo, you need to have the icons separate, export them separately. It creates in different colors, in full color, in reverse, and stuff like that. So you need to, these are some of the design files that you need to hand off. So the source file, it's important that you hand off the source file. Some of us don't see the need. Well, if they ask for it, then it needs to be provided in case they need to modify and edit. But there's an underlying thing here that I know I speak for a lot of people when they say that they cannot give the clients their source file. This is actually industry standard, by the way, like nationally and internationally. You need to provide the source file. But they might be thinking, how much did the client even pay me? I've been wondering, well, I'll let's not go into all of that, right? So it's very, very important. It's very, very important, right? Okay, I'm looking at the comment section, right? So the source file, and then number 2 is vector files. The file names such as EPS or the AI files as well. They are scalable and they can be used for printing for digital or for digital purposes, right? So in case they need an SVG file, SVG file is also a vector file, mind you. So EPS, SVG, you can export in that format as well, for web when they need to, all those other things that they need to do, right? And then the third one is the raster files, the bitmap, right? JPEG or PNG files. PNG is very important because they will need to place it on a lot of things without background and all of that. And then the JPEG, maybe they want to use it as a profile picture and stuff. So that's important as well. But you must also optimize them for digital use, right? It's not just to develop something and just put it in a box and give it to them. So there are certain dimensions for each social media or platform or something. If it's 1080 by 1080, if it's 12 by 12, you need to have all of that. So the designs are optimized. So you're not giving them a file size that is smaller, and by the time they upload it, it's becoming pixelated, you understand? So because they are raster files, right? So that is also important. Then another thing when you're preparing the final files is the end of a brand guideline. So it's not just enough to create a logo or an identity system. You need to set a comprehensive set of guidelines that outlines the brand's visual identity, the typography, the color palette, with their codes, mind you, because when people pick off an image, it may not be as accurate, and especially when you have disparities with color management, CYMK and RGB, and somebody imports, say the colors that you've used in the design, and then they try to pick and they pick something different, totally different, and it messes up your design or your system. Okay, so it's important to add the codes to the color palette. And then imagery is also very, very important, right? Would they be using black and white images, or would they be using full color images? If they'll be using full color images, must the images have a certain tone to it? So there are tones of when you are editing images and all of that. So a certain tone to it, or if you are using a general image type, would it be that the image must include at least one of the primary colors of the brand? So is it that the person is the objects, the object or something? No, one of the two. The subject, yeah, you have to be subject. Yeah, so the subject, is it that the subject is wearing like what I'm wearing now, the blue? If the blue is part of the branding, brand colors, maybe the subject has to wear something that has that shade. So I know that it's hard to find things like that readily made, right? So that's where photography skills also come in. As a brand designer, you need to have a wide set of skills, right? You need to maybe manipulate something here and there on the image that sort of gives the subject the brand color. You get. So yeah, you need to set all of that. If you don't want to go through all of that, you can just basically say these things with the colors that we have used in this image. We think that it is a black and white imagery that will work best, especially based on what the company is trying to achieve or the kind of company that it is. As a black and white image that would work, right? And then you must also deliver the final artwork, the final design in print-ready PDFs, high resolution images, right? And the images that you've used in the identity system will also be attached to the final files that you're presenting to the client. Now, it is not just enough to hand off the final files with the necessary documentation, the style guide, the brand guidelines, the visual identity guidelines, document, and all of that. It is not just enough to do that. You need to also follow up. So if you look at case studies home and abroad, now people are developing is robust to the extent to which at the end of those case studies, you see people add things like results as a final or a conclusive part, or it could be conclusion or it could be result. Now it could be conclusion when the brand is not yet in use. By the time at the time that you published your case study, maybe it's not yet in use, but you just highlight the objectives and the things that the identity system has worked out, has made work out for you, and the way that your the result, the solution that you have proposed and how it met the client's need and all of that. Now, if it will be a result if the client has already started to use these designs that you've come up with, and then you will now have to put things like how it was received, what people feel about it, and then if it really met the company's objective, right? It's not just enough to do that as well. You need to have you need to also follow up. You follow up with the client to ensure that they are satisfied with the final product and to address any concerns or questions they might have, right? So now I think that we can put in our question. Somebody asking, okay, what is brand identity? So I mentioned earlier, maybe you were not in class, in the chats when we started. a brand identity basically is the a form of brand experience, the things, the tangible things, the visual assets that people come in contact with, that makes them understand the kind of brand that you are or what your brand is all about. There are tangible things. Now, I mentioned that a brand is an expectation of an experience, right? So an experience that is formed by the interaction of people, the interaction that people have with a brand, right? So that's what brand identity is, that all the tangible things, the logo that people can see, the brand patterns, the image types that you're using, the communication is also very important, a very important part of this. So in the marketing materials that you're going to deliver to the clients alongside the logo. So when you're saying things like how do I put this? Now, maybe you just want to create promotional materials like flyers, for example, to show how the logo will be placed, or how the assets that you've developed will be used in marketing materials of stuff like that. Then it would make sense, to develop copies that you think will resonate with the audience based on the research that you've done. So that copy generation is also a responsibility on you, and you may not do it yourself if it's too much work. If you have capacity to outsource, work with someone else who has the ability to generate mind-blowing copies that will blow away the mind of the clients. Say, oh, this person really understands what we're talking about here, and then it better sells your idea to them. Okay, do you have any other questions before we move on while I try to share my screen now? I don't know, Mr. Demola, could you make me a co-host? I don't know if I'm...
Don't worry, you can share your screen.
Okay, so I can share my screen, which I'll be doing now. So we are going straight into... Okay, so we'll be going straight into... Can you see my screen yet?
No, not yet. That's my end.
Okay. Can you see it now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So this is Illustrator. I don't know, do we all have our illustrators open so we can move together? Right, so I'm sorry it took all of this explanation to get here, because a lot of things decisions we'll be making with this brand that we're trying to work on is it will make sense to you because of some of the things that I've shared earlier. So you better understand why some of these decisions have to be made. Okay. Okay. Let's do this way. You can all see my screen. So we're going to start off with like our process said, understanding the client brief. In this case, it was a WhatsApp message too, I think. Now the brand that we're going to be using here, because a lot of things have been happening very recently, here and there and all of that. So I wanted to come up with a fictional brand, right? But in this case, this brand is actually live. So we're going to start with that. So this is what a sample of the questionnaire I was talking about looks like. Right? This is a very basic one. There are a lot more complex ones. And it's because primarily this project was just it's just something that it was for a sub brand. So it wasn't we're standing on an existing architecture, an existing brand or identity, so to speak. So for example, this is a question, the name of the brand literally, because some people send you messages and then you're seeing things like, okay, say this person now did not add the podcast. Do you understand? So the person just says the money bites and then they're gone. But then you're like, you created the money bites and he was like, no, I forgot to tell you, you need to add the podcast. So this is why it's very important. And then you're asking why we're creating the logo. What is the identity for? What is it for?
Sorry for cutting the Bolati.
All right.
Beautiful. You can see the question yes, please.
You can't? Oh, wow. Okay.
Someone also drop on the group too.
Let me see. Oh, so sorry about that. Okay, let me try and. Oh, you can still see the illustrator, Abby.
Yes, please.
Oh, okay. I think I see what the problem is. Okay, give me a second. Can we see it now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yes, so this is going to make sense because it was actually filled by someone, right? So it says this is the name of the brand, the Money Bites podcast. That is what he wants on the logo. So I was explaining that it is possible that the person had put the Money Bites and forgot the podcast. And then you go ahead to do the logo, including Money Bites, excluding podcast. And then it becomes an issue that you have to, circle back and all of that. So to avoid that, that's why I put the word literally. Now, this is just a basic questionnaire, like I said. There are very much more complex ones that asks more deeper questions and stuff. But this one is just gives you an idea. So you can always go online, research, do other forms of check for other forms of questionnaires and come up with your own, right? So in this branding business, you don't have to copy or do what other people are doing verbatim, right? So it's sweeter, it's much more sweeter when you can call it your own, you fine tune it, you make it look like yours. It has your personality embedded in it so that when people interact with it as well, because this is also so to speak, your brand identity, right? So this questionnaire and how you communicate things in there is how people also relate with you as well, and the way you present it like this will help them better understand the type of person that you are. As far as by personal brand now. Okay, so we're creating a logo for a product, and then I asked, what is your brand about? And it says the Money Bites podcast is a crypto-focused personal finance podcast that discusses everything about money, savings, and everything else in between. The goal of the podcast is to drive engagement to other Quiver technology products, such as the Quiver wallet. Now, as I mentioned before, that this brand is a sub-brand of an existing brand, right? And the name of the existing brand is Quiver Technology. Okay. Okay, so this gives us an insight into what the brand is about and what they do, right? And then we ask for target audience. Now this is really, really basic. It just said adults from 24 to 60. It didn't tell us other things that we need to know. It didn't tell us the kind of income. It didn't tell us if it's just for Africans or for what do you call it now? For the world. I mean, 24 to 60 years old could be anybody literally from any planet. Okay. So I mean, there are other questions that you need to ask to circle down, dribble down to give you specific answers, right? And in this case, I think what we did was we had a discovery session. After I got this, and then I asked him a couple of other questions. The questions were becoming plenty, because he was he's the CEO of the company, and then he's so busy. We just had to do a call, right? You remember when I was saying understand the client brief, I mentioned ask questions, seek clarity. Seek clarity, always ask questions. So you don't do design in isolation. You always have to carry the clients along, right? Because it's a lot of work. You cannot do all of these things. Remember that long list of processes I shared, and then you do all of that, and then when it gets to the hand of give it the client, and the client is rejecting, how would you feel? So it's very important to carry them along stage by stage. So at this stage, after getting this information, we jump on a call, and I had to ask for more specific questions to receive more specific answers. right? Do you have any key competitors? You mentioned a number of them. And what I did is I went on everywhere that I could literally find these people and check them out, right? I did like an audit of what they're all about, the kind of messaging that they put out. If we're going to be competing with these brands, we need to do things very differently and very engaging in a very engaging way. Okay, so I went through all of that. You mentioned the list, and then what makes your product or service unique? And then he said that they're targeting mostly lower income people to teach them how to build wealth using leverage loans and sustainable savings. Now, all of these answers that he's giving us, there are answers that is helping already to shape the kind of brand that they are and the way we're going to represent it. Okay, and then you have the urban, and then you have a question that says, what words would you like to associate with your brand? What do you want to communicate? How do you want to appear to your target audience? And then there's a long list of adjectives or what have you. And then they can pick more than one. So in this case, it picks that he wants them to be urban. He wants the logo to be urban, simple, light-hearted, approachable and friendly, and then high-tech. Okay, so we have put that on the back of our minds, right? And then the next one is, do you have a particular color or colors that you want us to work with? It's also important. So that, like what I said before about, the client having a bias, being attracted to a particular color, and then you end up going all of that route to do something, and then you have created something magical, so good. You're happy with yourself, and then you deliver it, and the guy's like, I hate this color. And because he hates the color, he will most likely hate the logo, even without looking at what it means. Okay, so that's why these preliminary questions are very important. So yeah, so in this case, there's a main brand. So they just want us to use the colors, pick off the colors from the main brand. Other logos and identities you like that you feel we have some relevance to what we're doing. And he said, check out Bigger Pockets podcast logo. Remember, he didn't mention this before. So if we did initiate as a competitor, so if we did initiate this to say that this is the type of logo he wants, he likes the way these people do their logo, he likes the way these people have their brand identity working for them, and that's the kind of thing that we want. So this sort of is a very big step, is a very big and giant step towards our success in this project. Okay, and then he said, what type of logo would you prefer? And then I gave him some examples. Remember what I said earlier as well, and then I just attached a blog there where you can read lengthily on types of logo, and then you can make up his mind. And he came back to say, hey, you know what? We want a combination mark, right? And I asked any other information you may feel useful at the stage. Said none. Okay, I think we have what basic things that we need to get to work, right? And then he says, thank you for completing our identity questionnaire, blah, blah, blah. You get it. So you get the drift. So this document will be handy. You have to make it handy because a lot of things I have to go back to read. I mean, there are times that I'm stuck in some projects and I'll be like, what am I going to do? And then I just go through this document again and it makes sense. It gives me a fresh perspective. It gives me understanding. Somehow it just feels like I've never read it before. And then just going through it again just opens your eyes. Yes, so that's very important as well, to keep this document handy. Don't just throw it somewhere and say that, that's it, and that's it. Okay, so let's go to, from the information that we have, let's go to Illustrator. Okay, I copied out the colors already. So I'm going to move here very fast since we already understand the concept that we're trying to do. Okay, so these are the logos of the concept of the previous brand. I'm just going to, bring them in very handy for us. Okay. So I also had other ideas, that I wanted to that I wanted to share based on this, so that we can move as fast as possible. So I want to explore something that had to do with the crypto industry. Remember, it's a crypto brand. And I wanted to explore something that has to do with podcast, the podcast part, which is things that you can associate with the word. So I mean, something I also do for my project is something called word associations. Because of time, I think going into that is going to take a lot of our time. What you just do is generate words, go back to that questionnaire again, look at some of the buzzwords that were there. I think it kept mentioning savings, investment, crypto. Those were words that stood out a lot. Now you copy them out, you write them out, and then you start to think of other ideas, other words that could mean the same thing that are not as abstract. Okay, so if they want if the brand is maybe accessible, if the brand is about protection, you can now start to generate other things. And at the end of the day, you now realize that you are moving from the realm of abstract now to something very tangible. Now, another idea I explored is the name of this is Money Bites. And then I just thought about it from research. I mean, I'm not a computer scientist or anything like that. But from research, I knew that 8 bits make a byte, right? So I wanted to explore something around that as well. Right? So yeah, and then this had to do with money. So I wanted to explore something around that as well. So I ended up developing quite a number of sketches. But I mean, for the purpose of this class, I'm going to just show you just a bit from here, and let's move on quickly. So what I'm going to do now is put on my grids to create some of this, and I'm going to show you the presentation, an idea of how to present the initial stage. That's the initial draft after this. But yeah, this is like the logo that the client picked out of the 3 that was presented to him. So this is one that we're going to really be creating, because we already have, a lot of access for it, so I'm not to waste our time. Okay, so I'm going to put on my grid now. Now, I mentioned that I already sketched out some of the ideas out of the very numerous ones. These were some that I quickly had to go. So what I just did is I took a screenshot on my app, or downloaded it as I told you I used an app. I used Procreate to create this. So I just took a screenshot of it and imported into Illustrator. So there's nothing really hard about this. And then so quickly, I'm going to crop out all of these other things, because this is the one that is our focus. And then this one, I'll tell you the rationale behind this is because it sort of has to do with trading and crypto. Now, so the stakeholder felt very pleased with this one, because he said that, it felt like the crypto was embodied in the logo, which is something that the podcast is overwhelmingly about, right? So yeah, that was the rationale for this. And then, so what I'm going to do is, let's do this. So I'm going to crop out all of these other things, right? And the reason I'm also using a design that is live is, when you were reading my bio, and I'm very passionate about creating brands that thrive. So I'm not just on about creating a logo for a brand that would, they will just shelve the design. I want to see my design work. I want to see my design working wonders. So yeah, so this is like a practical example of a design that is working currently because it's live and the clients love it, right? So that's why I'm using this. Okay. So what I'm going to do here from here now is I'm going to change the transparency or reduce the opacity rather, so that we can see what we are drawing. Now I assume that you have some, this is a very basic logo. Anyway, so we won't be using a lot of tools, just very simple. The idea is not to teach the logo, it's just to teach the way the whole identity comes together and makes a brand thrive, right? So here we have this. I'm going to increase it a bit. I think I'm going to get this white out of the way so we can, yep. Okay, that's it. So I'm going to align it with the grid. I'm reducing the opacity to like 5, no, like 15, so that we can still see the sketch. So we're tracing this sketch. That's why it's important to sketch, because sometimes if you are drawing on just, I mean, creating the shapes and logo on the software, it may not really give you the expression that you want. But if you're creating the, if you have created a sketch, and then it's easier to trace, especially if you have much more complex logos, like mascot logos, you usually sketch those and then bring it here to trace. And that's why I'm doing this. So in case you have a very much more complicated logo, then this will make sense to you. But this is very simple. It's something we can just draw in 5 seconds and then we're done. All right, so I'm going to align it to the, you know, center. Now, because it's a freehand sketch, it will not be perfect, right? So that's what I need us to understand. So I've tried to align it such a way that it is very much centralized. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lock this layer in my layers panel. I'm going to lock it down so that it doesn't interfere with anything that we're doing. Right. So this is it. I'm going to lock it. So it's locked, so it cannot move out of this screen. So what I'm going to do now is to, excuse me. Okay. So I'm going to pick a rectangle tool. Just going to draw a basic shape, which is a rectangle, right? Let's draw it like so, such that it aligns with the grid. Okay, I'm going to change this to a stroke rather than a fill. Here it shows us that we have the blue fill. So I'm going to change it to a stroke so we have a better view of what's going on, and I mean the alignment and all of that. First change it to black, and I don't think the black. Okay, let's leave it at white, and then with Shift X, it changes, or you can just go in there and, you know, swap the colors there. I'm going to reduce the stroke size a bit to, it's currently on 1. I'm going to reduce it to 0.5, so it's tiny enough. Okay, so are you guys following me? I hope I'm not on my own.
Yes, we are following.
Okay, thank you, sir. Right, so right there, we are right there. And then what we're going to do now is, you know, I'm going to pick my rounded corner okay, right here. Then I'm going to pick one corner of the rectangle, and I'm just going to, you know, drag it all the way up until I see that red, you know, that red sign that tells you you can no longer go. Yeah, so it's as simple as that. And then just that, and then we'll come to the upper part, the two upper sides. We click the two anchor buttons here. I mean the corner buttons here, and then you drag both of them as well until you get to the final part. I mean, it also shows red that you can't go further. Okay, so now that we have that, we are like 50% done with this, or let's say 40% done with logo, since we don't have the typography yet. Okay, so now that we have that, what we just do is, because we are using it basically the same shapes all together, then what I'll just do is duplicate this till it gets to the next grid. And then I'm moving all the way up just a bit, just like so. So in all of this, see that this designs, that's why we're using the grid. because it's aligning to the grid. It makes it a perfect shape, right? A pixel perfect shape. Okay, and then I'll change this also. All right. Okay. So I'm going to move this down a bit. Okay. All right. Are you all with me? Okay, so now that we have that, I think I'll just I'll duplicate it onto this white canvas. And then I'll change the color to black. And then change the stroke to fill. There you have it. Now we have representation of our logo. I'm going to turn off my grid now so I can have other things. I can see other things that I want to do clearly. Okay. So the grids, I mean, you can get them by the side here. I've customized my own my workspace so that everything I need can work out for me as easy as it can. But if you can't see your grids here, you can always go to your Windows panel and then your view. Yes, you see smart guides and grids. You can see show grid here, and then you can pick and open make your grids visible. Okay. So now that we're done with that, I'm just going to get rid of this. And I'm going to get rid of this as well. For the lock icon. Yeah, I'm going to get rid of that. Okay, and here we have this. Our logo looking, very basic and simple as it should. All right, so we have this, and then we have the colors. Now, remember I told you the colors don't come in yet until the first pages of all of the stuff is done. So I mean, this is a combination mark. So we already have the logo made. What we will need now is the typography to go along with the logo, because it is I mean, we already have the icon made, but we need typography to make it a full logo lockup. Okay, and because an existing brand was easier because they already have a typography system. So I asked it wasn't stated in the questionnaire, but I asked the clients during our discovery call, and he said, okay, we have an existing color system and we have an existing typography. We would like you to continue with that because it's a sub brand. Okay, so yes, that's what we also did. And the name of typography they used was Poppins. Get it? Poppins. And funny how I'm not a big fan of Poppins. I know it's a very great typography, and I think that is overused. I don't know if you know that. I mean, if you agree with me, man, it's an iconic logo, but I think there are a lot of people use it a lot. It's being used a lot. So but it's a very great logo. I love it as well because it's very versatile. And no, Mr. Demola, I love it. I love it. I did not say I did not love it. What's not to love about it? It's a very versatile. It has all of these very nice features. The tracking and leading is almost perfect. It's not perfect, right? Unlike every other, most of the other typographies that you have to adjust the tracking, the leading, adjust it to make it look good. But I think I also think that Poppins is great in all of its glory, but a lot of people use it. That and Montserrat, right? Yes. Okay, let's pick Poppins now. Let's pick Poppins. So for this, I'll use medium weight. And I'm going to type out the name of the brand, the Money Bites podcast. All right. So in this case, what I'm going to do now is we cannot put a logo, I mean the brand name such as long, that is this long rather, and they just join it. It will be so barbaric. People will be like, what's going on here? So let me increase the size a bit. Okay. So what I'm thinking that we should do here, because I mean this is now our logo together, is split up this text, right? In such a way that it complements the icon. Okay, I didn't group this, so we're going to group this together. Okay. To complement the icon is bold. It has a very bold characteristic. So I think that a lighter font width like this would complement it better to make it look cohesive. Now, the reason we're also using this lightweight that is not bold or extra bold or something like that is because there's a lot of text. There's a lot of things going on the brand name. Like 4 different words are coming together. You often don't see this kind of brand identity where you have to put all of those, but each of these words were very, very important that we should add it as the client suggested. Okay, so what I'm going to do is break up this text a bit. I'm going to give it a center justification. Okay, so now it's still not looking very proportional. I'm going to increase it a bit as well. Let's say 60. Okay, I think it's looking much better now. So what I'm going to do here is break out this podcast because I mean there's still so much going on, right? I'm going to break that out and give it a new, open up a new place for it to stay. So it's going to be on its own, technically not on its own. So what I'm going to do here is, in order to have a much more cohesive look, right, I'm also going to reduce the weight of this podcast because, in design, it's very important to understand hierarchy, principles of design. It's important to know. And in this case, the podcast is just a nice to have. I don't think that it is 100% necessary that it is there, right? So in that case, it should not take attention away from the main brand name, which should be the headline. The podcast just tells us the category of logo or what the logo is meant for, or the kind of brand that it is. It's a podcast brand. Okay. So what I'm going to do is change it to, I think, lights. Yeah, lights would work. And then something that gives it sort of tension would be to make it capital letter, all caps. I'm going to change it to all caps. All caps. So when you use all caps like this, there's something that you can do is okay. Sorry, yes. Can you hear me? All right. I think. Hello. Are you still with me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah. Somebody mentioned training. Yes. Perfect. That's it. So I'm going to change it. It's a trick. Gives it a lot more balance to the typography. I mean words that you have put up there. So I'm going to change it to 500, and then now reduce the size of, okay. So I think this looks good. I don't know, this looks good. Okay, I still have some form of problem with this because it's still not looking right. I still need it to come together to look like they are one family, right? So what I'm going to do now is, let's try this out. I'll break this up again. I mean, this is really a challenge with brands with names that are so long. That's why most of them end up, the brands that use letter marks as they end up, because usually the brand names are long. That's why they just use the abbreviations basically to create the logo, so that it's not a handful like NBC, like NCA. I mean, like in this case, it would have been a lot easier to just use TMB, but they're a new brand. So how do you tell that, right? It's a lot. So you have to make it work. I'm going to give this a left alignment. Okay. And then align this as well. Okay. I'm going to reduce the leading on this. It's on 72. So I'm going to adjust it a bit. Okay, I think 60 works. And then we have that. See, I'm going to create like a little rectangle here that will give us an idea of the spacing between the icon and the type, right? So I always like that when I create logos, they all come together like they're one family. Something is, so it creates some form of balance, right? So what I'm going to do now is, you know that these are still live text, right? So I'm going to create them and turn them to outlines, because I think they all come together now. This doesn't look bad. Okay, so I'm going to select the text, and then I like to use shortcuts a lot, right? So I'm going to go to objects, path, and outline stroke, and then it changes from a light text to stroke pattern, something. But I like to use shortcut Shift Command O, and then it's done. So you can see this is what it was before. You can see the text. You can see that it's editable and all of that. But once you do that, you see that the live text feature is gone, and then you are left with text that are shapes basically. So they're all shapes. It's easier to manipulate, and you can, if you can decide to make this E a lot more unique, and then add some rounded corners, make it look crazy, make the corners a bit rounded, or add some extra features that makes it not copyable or just easily typable, right? But in this case, we won't be doing all of that. This is just, but this is what avails you that opportunity. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this now. Okay, so this is where we are now. I'm going to group this. Okay. First, I'm going to align them to the left. Make sure that they are aligned to the left. And then I'm going to group them. And then remember, we have grouped this icon before. So yeah, I'm going to select both of them, and then vertical align them so that you know that they are on the same. Yeah, you can see that it moved up. So now, some days ago or some weeks ago, I shared something on Twitter about optical alignment and mathematical alignment. So what this just did is mathematical alignment. But it looks to me, I don't know if I'm wrong. You guys, you can debate me here. So if you think that what we had before was better aligned to what this is, say yes in the comment section. But if you think that this alignment is better than what we had before, say no. Yeah. So this will lead me to the next set of discussion that we're going to have. And we need to move very fast now. I think I have like 15 minutes more. Okay, no. Okay. 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 Let me just have one more response then. Yeah. So what I'm asking this is because it's important that you train your eyes to understand alignment as well. The former is better. Yes. Okay. Yes. I think the yeses are winning. Okay. So what we can see is what we had. This is what we had before, right? This is what we had before. Guys, look at it very well. Oh, this is what we had before, and this is what it changed to. This is what we had before, and this is what it changed to. Okay. So now what I'm going to say is what I posted that thing because I felt like everybody we sort of still struggle with that thing, right? Alignment thing. And at the end of the day, we do a very fantastic logo that is not balanced. And this is what I'm trying to say. Right? If you look at this very carefully, this is what I think this is what we had before. Yes, so this is what we had before. The way right. I'm starting to think the former is better, lol. Exactly, Chukuma. So now what I'm trying to say is this one that we have now, or that we had before, it's sort of on a leveling ground because it's everything is falling on a particular form, like a line or something. Yeah, you can see the logo is still very, very close to the line. Let me also do this. Okay, so you can see, this is what we had before. And I think that this is a lot more, like this is perfectly aligned. But when I do the matriculation or mathematical, whatever that this Adobe does, and then I did the vertical align such that we have equal, everything is balanced. This is what it gave us. And this is actually not aligned. Optically, I'm looking at it and something is wrong. I'm looking at it and it's not really, really making sense to me, because I feel like because the font on top exactly looks off. The font on top is bold. The one on the left, the icon itself is bold. It's the what Adobe is just doing is just calculating the height and doing it by average and then adjusting it. But in this case, I think that because the way the icon is, one side is full, one side is bent, you need to also put in all of those considerations when you're doing all these things, right? Yeah, so I think that the one we had before is actually better aligned. Like I illustrated with the lines, you can see the lines. There was a meeting ground, a meeting point. There was a middle ground for both of them. Yeah. So we are not going to follow Adobe. I want to mislead us. Thanks. Yeah, okay. So we are not going to go into all the refining and making this perfect and all of that. I just wanted to make that point known to us. Now that we have our logo, what's the next step? Then we're going to, share with the clients. We're going to share with the clients. And then what I mentioned before about presenting in black and white. So for this particular project, we can't make, it's not possible to make 3 options, right? So I usually do 2 to 3 options for the initial draft and present my idea to the client. And I'll show you an example. So this is an example of how I do it, right? So for this particular branch, this is what I presented to them. Sorry, 1 minute. Okay. So this was what I presented to the clients, right? So there was one, because the rationale behind this, I said I wanted to use, so what we created just now will make sense to you because of the reason why, the idea based on what the client has said, the meetings that we have and the things that he mentioned. So I was like, and I presented to him that, okay, from everything that you have mentioned, this brand name is a lot, so we need to find a way to manage it. So in this very option, I made sure that, so I kind of used a discussion, worked around discussion of a mic when you're talking to podcast, you're talking into a microphone, and then is audio related. So I wanted to explore that aspect as well. So it's a simple logo mark consisting of a word mark. And I'm reading this out so that we can have an idea of how to also include rationales. It's not just enough to put in JPEG files or a PDF file and present to the and just send to the client to pick his choice, right? You need to put in the reason, your thought process, based on data. Now, the data we're working with is what he has mentioned to me, the things he has said during our calls, the things he has said in the document. So I'm sort of quoting it back to him that based on the things that you have said, this is why this makes sense as an exploration, also as an option for the brand. I particularly like this option because it was, urban, it was simple. Those were the characteristics he said he was looking for. It sort of brings out a what you call it, an urban energy, a modern energy to things, right? And so I created this and put in this very nice looking fonts, made it unique. So this is more like a word mark kind of logo. I just impute something of significance to replace the O there, which is a dispersed sound, like I mentioned, from a mic grill. Now the second option here, so once I mentioned it's a bite related podcast, right? So I just put in the center circle here just meant it represented a coin or something as per money, and then you can see 8 segments around this. It has 8 segments, and I mentioned that 8 bits make up a byte, right? So that was an option I also explored, which I wrote down. So it's important to write down. If you're not going to present physically or in a meeting, or maybe you're just sending, they need to understand why this was a rationale for you. Yeah, so I also mentioned that. And then this was the last one, which is what he picked, and that's why we're recreating it. Okay. So this concept explores the idea of the candlesticks. So I think you understand better why that logo was important now. So you know that during research, I went through all of those things that are related to crypto. Now I'm not really into crypto things and stuff. A lot of things that I know, a lot of information that I've gathered over the years, I even use at work because people are like, how do you're always updated with these things? It's because when clients come to me, I'm clueless about the brand or the industry they're coming from, but I have it. I mean, it's my responsibility to do research to understand in depth so that I can embody the brand, right? Yeah. So that's what I sort of put down here. So they express the idea of the candlesticks and the association to the crypto and trading industry to symbolize the letter M. So from the word money, the infusion of the brand M and the candlestick chart makes the icon unique, memorable, accompanied with a sans serif typeface, which simplifies the mark, and then ultimately makes it friendly and better resonates with the target audience. Remember, our target audience are people from the ages of 24 to 60. They are men and women. And so during the subsequent calls and chats that I had with the stakeholders, he was like, okay, it gave me better understanding into who the people they are really targeting is, because I asked those kind of questions. The people you want to target, who are they? Are they tech savvy? Would they understand these things that I'm talking about? Would they, so he mentioned some of those things during the call. So the logo has to be something simple and relatable for a wide range of people. And that's why we wanted to do something very simple. And then because these people already have information or knowledge about crypto, this would make sense to them, right? The candlesticks, when you're trading, I don't know, so this was it. You know that red and green thing that shows you the up and downs of the market and stuff. So that was why he chose this, because he felt it resonated better, much more than the other two options. Okay, so we're going to develop. The next steps now is to, once he has approved it, then we're now going to develop some other things that will make sense for us today. Now we're going to put it in, we're going to add colors and stuff like that. So I'm going to pick, oops, okay, I don't have, okay, so you can see this particular app, I was just playing around with a lot of things, like I was creating different sorts of things. This gives you an idea into how you make iterations. You just want to refine, you just want the perfect thing, and then you end up just creating different kinds of things. Okay, before you now settle for the top 3 or the top 2 or what have you. So I even consider this lockup, and I think it's really cool as well, but I just didn't go with that. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to look for, there's a color here missing. I'm trying to look for okay. So I'm going to copy out the X code of the design. Yep. Then I think I missed out on one here, the darker shade one. I'm going to copy out the X code. So something I used to do is to memorize the X codes of the brands I work with or I work on. It just makes life easy, and then it makes me feel like I'm a part of them. In this case, I really forgot it, so forgive me. Let's see. I don't know why it's not copied. Oh, not this one. The darker one. Okay. Yeah, I don't think I have that. All right. So I'm going to do is, I mentioned things like how to export the file and all of that. So I'm going to create, I think I have, yep. Okay, the other tab I have, yeah. So this was the darker shade of green. Okay, okay, let's use this. Okay, so because we already have this, for the purpose of this training, I'm going to reduce the size, and then I'm going to break it up as per, yeah. Okay, notice the live text on this particular one is still on. Okay, so I reduced the icon here also. So people can also read the name. It's not taking all of the attention and that, yeah. So I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to give it a center alignment. I'm going to bring the icon on top. So there's something called lookups in logos. So for this first one, this will be like the primary lookup, because this is what people would often use. This is what would be like the general one that will be used on major places. So in places where things are, you need to have a vertical form of logo, like something that work on a vertical platform or maybe on print, then it's important as well to also have a variation of this. So there are several variations where we want to export. So I'm bringing this up. You see some logos have the icon on top, some have by the side. It's important to have both. Yeah, so the logo must be versatile enough to work in both ways. So in cases where I want to print this on a pen, I will use this primary one. But if I want to print this on something that is vertical, maybe, I don't know, nothing is coming to my head now, but you get the drift. That's why this is important. So what I'm going to do is add some color to this. Let me reduce it. I think it's a bit big. I'm going to separate this. So when you see me post on Twitter with my my canvas or my artboard or my workspace looking very, very, there's a lot of things going on. I just like to have my things around, like I can pick from. It makes it easier and makes me faster. So yes, so I'm going to give it this color, and I'm going to also duplicate it, give it this color, and then change the text to white. Now, I'm going to also do this for this. Same. So these are, how do you call it, full color and reverse. And then I'm going to do the reverse now. So I'm going to make this sorry, oh, it's still a live text. Let me change it. Should have done this before duplicating, so I don't waste time. Okay, so now that we're here, all right, so I'll just pick the black color with the color picker. Can do Control I. What do I always do? Not Control I, please. You can just do I, and then you get your color drop, color picker rather. Yes, so you have that. So in cases where they need to use all of this, they always have it without having to ask you. Okay. Then I'll group them like so. And then it's also important to bring out the icons alone. So you have the black icon, you have the white. These are all variations, and then the colored one. Okay, so these are the major colors that will be used in this one. Okay, so now that we have that, what I'll just do as grouping and stuff, grouping them all. Okay, then I just do, so like I was mentioning before, there's a software that they actually used to do this. It automatically generates all of these things for you in several formats. But I think it costs a bit of money, so I don't think it's a worthy investment. I'll use my hands right now. Yeah, so I'll just click export, blah, 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 blah. Export as multiple assets because I've grouped them. If you export a single asset, you export everything together as one file. So here I have all those files here. I'll just come here. There's several formats. Yes, PNG, JPEG, SVG, PDF. So you can just pick them one by one, export and run the export one by one, and then all goes to a particular folder. And then you now have to rename and do those things, right? Okay, so the part I'd like us to talk about lastly before we round this up. So I've done all of this before, all of this work. I'll just walk us through it because 2 hours cannot be enough to do like a full branding project, right? Just give us an idea of everything that was done. So I sort of made all of this with backgrounds that you can use for display picture, like I mentioned, for social media, like and stuff like that. And these are other expressions that are variations that I made, like I mentioned, that I was going to export. This also. And then I mentioned when you're rendering the files, you render a style guide as well. So for this particular project, having a style guide was not a priority for them because they already have a major, but this is my brand. Like I need to set up some brand rules as well, or something that will give you an idea of what I've created and how it should be used. So this is just an overview. This is not a comprehensive or an exhaustive brand guidelines, right? It doesn't have a lot of things, but this just gives you an idea. You can, this is somewhere you can, if you have not had or done a brand guideline before, this will give you an idea of what you can do. And then while you research and add other things to make it more of you, right? And not just other people's things, right? Like I mentioned, brand identity, you need to start branding yourself first before you are able to brand other people successfully. Think about all these things, how it affects you as a brand first, before you think about how you want to solve other people's problems, right? So yeah, it's important that you create your own process, create your own workflow, create your own assets, create things that work for you very well, so as to be unique in your own way. So I just wrote down the about us. The guy shared this with me as the client. Is a podcast, blah 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 blah. And then the logo that we picked, I had to put it there in case somebody else, they needed to share this to somebody else that wants to do design. They can have an idea of how we arrived at this. And then I shared the primary logo lookup is this, like I mentioned before, this was horizontal one, because it's used and is useful and it's versatile and can be, when used consistently and correctly, it brings out the beauty of everything, right? This is also the color, the clear space guideline, right? So I'll sort of put in some things here. So then the height, which is supposed to be X height, that's the entire height of the logo, and then half that the height of the logo should be the space around the logo before any other thing comes in there. That's what clear space means, right? So you also need to have that in place. Then best logo practices, some guidelines: do not change or resize our logo, do not change the position, do not change the font no matter what, no matter how close the font is. Do not change the size, do not squish or squash it. Like now people squish. I don't want to shake some tables here, but I know some people who are very good at squishing and squashing things just to make it fit into the size, that they want the thing to enter. Okay, and then don't change our colors anyhow or to any other thing. The way the logo is the way we want it to be. Now, the typography is just a one typography brand, which is why it's here. I just put it out there. They already have the comprehensive one in the major brand guidelines for the head company. And then the color I mentioned, putting the color codes. This is just the X code. You can also put the Pantone, you can put CMYK codes, you can put the RGB codes there for versatility for the purpose of this. And then also created a pattern out of this. So creating a pattern is really simple. I struggle with it too in when I first started out, but it's just as easy as bringing it out here and then going to the pattern creator. There's a pattern creator in Adobe that you can just use. Let me just type it out here. You can make a pattern, create a pattern for you, make it by column or stuff, adjust the metric, and then you have a pattern. So that was the method I used to create this one. Okay. So this is the brand pattern that I created. You see how it was used now. And then the imagery, I also mentioned that imagery is important. So in this case, you can see this imagery is, all encompassing basically from the old, like from the 60 years to somebody that can pass for a 24-year-old. So we try to infuse that. So the imagery would include people that, the wide range of their audience, not just a particular sort of people or not just, a particular gender, right? So this is the brand graphics. Now, This one is the way the images will be used, or the way the graphic, the patterns, or this image style will be used on most of their marketing materials, which we thought was really, really interesting and really nice, because it had to do with um, um, the icon, the logo symbol itself, which will also help to drive adoption and recognition. People, it always comes on top of mind when people always see this. It makes them remember the logo as well. So these are some of the marketing materials we just developed for them using the pattern, and basically the same things, something very simple, nothing too extravagant, and then they really loved it, right? Nothing out of place. It's just everything is working together. So this also brings us back to the issue, of the questionnaire and the discovery meeting that you're going to have, the several meetings you're going to have with the client, understanding their point of view and what they want to capture. Now, they wanted to capture people that are already into crypto. They just want to help them to learn how to save and make better financial decisions. The same way you have money in the bank and you make some decisions to save or to spend, is the same way they want to teach people on how best to maximize crypto, and then for financial and what have you, financial, and then every other thing in between. Yeah, so that gives you an overview. We've used past our time, but I'll just stop here. I think we have covered the most part of everything, right? So do we have any questions? I know I've been speaking a lot. I felt like I'm alone in this, but I know you guys are with me. So this is like an end-to-end, basic project for me.
All right.
I hope.
I believe that was super. How do I want to put it? Intensive session that you just took us just now. Basically, that
I tried to shrink everything together. I know it was a lot of information.
No. It's worse. This is the thoughts, the information, and what you dropped in this session is actually what people pay for. I basically dropped it on our community, and I was like, okay, Bolutife is going far beyond what even I was expecting her to even go into. But it just shows the kind of passionate person you are, not just about people learning or people being impacted, but how detailed you are in your training session. And that thing I actually saw you played around with this particular logo and brand is the M is not just showing just M or showing candlesticks for those that are not trading. Basically, candlesticks is used to basically predict where the market is basically going to based on current trend. You understand what I'm saying right now? So beyond that, like I even see a microphone that they use for old school condensed mic that they use.
That long one, exactly.
I think I saw a little bit of that basically in the logo. So kudos to your work. I've learned a lot. If there's anything anybody will take away from here is that when you're presenting your logo, you should not just present a logo just as JPEG. There should be a place where you have the style of presentation, especially in the context of logo rationale. One thing freelance creatives don't do is that they don't add the rationale of your logo basically for people to see and basically what learn from. So if you have any question, please can you just basically drop it for her so that we can answer. So we're here in the next 10-15 minutes. This was scheduled to be a 2-hour session, but you and I know that based on what was learned today, it's something that you basically could not just share in 2 hours. Bolu, you really went deep, man. That I can really say.
I was just looking at it. How best do I start somewhere and hang it off? But it would not. I don't know if it will make that much sense. I want people to be able to use what they've learned here and then start creating amazingly. And I don't have to be the only, maybe one of the amazing designers that you know. I want you to be part of the list of great and amazing designers, and that's what I'm very passionate about.
All right, so please let's begin to drop our question. Basically, now what can I observe that you did into this session, which is good, is that you're able to take us through your design process, how you basically conceptualize. And I think that's what a lot of people see. I'm sure a lot of people that were in this session were picking things that they were not doing before, you understand, especially in the area of research. When I was teaching design thinking 2 weeks ago, I emphasized on the fact that design thinking is being able to design which is user-centric. And I spoke about the fact that in research and design thinking, you need to have what we call questionnaires and survey. And you really, really addressed it and you give examples. So people, if you've not been given questionnaires before, Tife has given us an example of how your questionnaires should be. Just go and do your research. So if you have any question, please let us drop it. Okay, so we have a question here right now. My question is, that's by Emmanuel. Emmanuel is saying that my question is, are mock-ups important in brand presentation? Bolutife, he's asking you that. Are mock-up important in brand presentation?
Absolutely, 100%. I just couldn't go into that part because, you know, the time constraints and all of that. So when I was presenting all of this, right, the logo had to go on mock-up presentations so that they see how it looks in real life. It's very important. There are times that the clients would not still, you know, they're still contemplating, we are not sure this will work for us, but as soon as they see it on something and it looks good, and they are just sold to it at the end of the day. So it helps you to seal that love when you creatively create a merchandise, maybe on a t-shirt, or you creatively create something out of the logo. Maybe the icon just stays somewhere by the side, and then they're looking at it and it fascinates them to say, okay, yeah, we can achieve this with our logo. Then I love it. You get, so that's what mock-ups help them to do, give them a virtual, a sort of visual, physical interaction with what you've created, which is, when it's on this thing, it's still very abstract, it's just there. But as soon as you put it on something, on a tote bag, or on a backpack, or on a face cap, it sort of now makes sense to them to say, okay, this is how it will really look in real life, which will always sells. He always sells. So yeah, it's very, very important.
All right. So thank you so much, Bolutife, for that. So please, do we have any other question? I'm just looking at your processes. As in, for those that can see the screen, you can see that top left, yeah. As when you see those paper scribble, can you guys see it? Drop it in the chat section if you can see it. You can see that top left. Then I'm seeing all your processes. I think you came up with like 80, 50 various variations. I'm telling you.
I still have to delete some of them that were very nonsense. So when you see me post on Twitter and then there's so many things happening, this is what actually happens. I'm looking for the best possible way to interpret the idea.
They should be, if you're charging $3,000 or $10,000 for this, it's basically what's your wow, because see the work. $10,000 for this, see the work that you put into it. Basically, you understand what I'm saying right now. It's really intense. All right, so the next, I'm going into the next question right now. Okay, so, this is a comment. It says, "God deal, creativity gives everybody." Miss Bolu, go the Hodam. Yeah, that's why we're spotlighting her, because we realized that we have some gurus in the community that they just hide. The funny thing about Bolutife is that she actually doesn't talk in the community. She doesn't say anything in the community.
I have to learn.
Right. So, but we fetched that out. All right, real love session, Bolu. Kudos to Ace Academy. That's Chukuma. Sorry. I just have one question. Have you ever worked on a company profile design, and do you have any points in creating the pointers? So he's asking that if you've worked on company profile, company brochures, what are the little pointers? I know we cannot go into that. That's another thing entirely. But what are the pointers you want to give people?
So the good thing about brochures is that they already have like a brand system that they should present to you, so you shouldn't be thinking so hard about the brochure, right? Once you have, it's an editorial design, right? I'm not very great with editorial design, I always say it, but when I do it, I still do it very well. People still appreciate it and they're happy with it, but it's not something I'm very that much passionate about. But I know that it is a how do I put it now? It is an embodiment of the brand. It needs to communicate everything the brand is about. And then if they give you the company Bible or the brand guidelines. It should already give you the ideas of the colors that you use. Now, but it needs to be very catchy, something that attracts attention to it, that people want to read. And I also think that for brochures, you need to go heavy on images. It is not just enough to, pack text, so on a page. It would be boring. So some pointers that I use when I have to create one is I spotlight some very keywords from the long text that they've given me as, how do you put that in? The word just escapes my mind now. So I just put them in a little box. I light it. The way you see magazines, newspapers, I light headlines, like something that I know that will draw people in to want to read it, no matter how long it is, right? So yes, I do that, and then I'll go heavy on images that are attractive, and then clean and crisp, so that it also encourages the reader and engages them. So I don't know, Mr. Demola will have some other additional points.
Oh, fantastic. There's really not too much to say, basically. Basically, then another thing I can basically advise is, so one thing that the internet does for us is that it gives us resources. So what you can also do basically is that have reference points that you're working with, especially with similar company profiles in that industry. Now, Tiffy has given, as in this session, it's extensive. I mean, this is what people pay for in our academy. When they come to our academy, what you're teaching them, is what people actually pay for. You've literally touched every point basically that you can touch in 2 hours. So another thing I also make reference to, she made references of website, Dribble, Pinterest, Behance, you understand, even Google, that you can go to see other company profile of people in those industries. Now, those are points basis reference points. It's where you can touch base with when you're trying to also get inspirations for how the profile basically to look like. Not just the profile, the kind of colors to use, and even the kind of images to use for such companies. That's one thing that we have in our days that we didn't used to have before, basically. So I think that's another thing I can basically add to that. Great work, man. Great work. Really appreciate what you've done so far. Okay, so someone else asked a question. Additional Oluwaseun is asking that my question is it the 3 best logo ideas? That means the 3 best logo ideas you give the client that you should put on mockup, or just the one that was picked by the client? Now she's trying to understand your processes.
Okay, so now this is a bit tricky, but it's a very good question. Thank you for asking. Yeah, so if you have a lot of time, you can. But why I don't do that is because, it's just bland, is in black and white, and it will not bring out the beauty as much as you wanted to bring it out on the mock-up presentation. So I usually wait for them to pick one, right? So that you don't end up wasting your time again. This time is of the essence, right? So you end up doing different mock-ups for 3 different logos, and then they eventually pick only one. It will feel like a wasted time, right? So I always believe that if they don't see a reason to pick one out of the 3 that was presented, it's probably because it's not good enough. But like 90% of the time, I don't think I've had any cost to redesign a draft. There's usually pick from that first draft. Now there may be iterations, they may have suggestions, say, okay, we like this icon, but we like the way you paired the other font that you used in the other option. Can you move it here? And then we look at it like that, and then we pair it, and then everybody's happy, right? So that usually happens. So I wait for them to do that. If they have corrections, they'll give corrections, because time is really of the essence, and these things really do take time. Looking for the best mock-up resources, sometimes you have to even pay for them. So I don't expect that you always have to do that. But if you have a bit of time, maybe you want to over impress, it's a good way to go. You can also try that.
All right. Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm going to stop sharing your screen right now.
Oh yeah, please do.
And the reason why I just want to do that, okay, so I think you should do that from your end to be easier.
Okay.
Okay, stop sharing. Okay, I've done that. All right, so that they can see your face.
Oh yeah, I forgot that.
Okay, all right. And I'm sure you're not getting upset that I stopped sharing your screen because that screen was loaded. Okay, so the next question is, yes, which is from Anu. Is asking that would like you to share your thoughts, and I think it's asking something very, very interesting that I can connect with is saying that what's your take on the school of thoughts that a logo should entail the product and service of a brand, like representing the brand identity with icons that represents the brand's product and service? Or what's a school of thoughts, which is the minimalist school of thoughts, that a logo doesn't have to represent the logo's products and services, e.g. Apple logo? So what's a school of thought in this? It's giving two options.
Okay, so I'll answer that question from, I mean, something we can all see. I'm glad that Anu gave these examples. I think the question already answers itself, but I mean, for the benefit of people who do not know, my school of thoughts is the minimalist approach, basically. And that's because when we're listing, now coming from data now, from things that we know, facts, when I listed the characteristics of a good logo, and I mentioned versatility, and I mentioned scalability, and I mentioned appropriateness and everything like that. Having a brand identity or a logo that has so much going on will not be scalable. If you look at my screen again, like we stopped sharing the screen, I had one of the options there that involved money. Like I drew out money, I had references online, drew out money, but I just thought about it. When they scale up down this logo, will this money show? Will it just show like a rectangle? So because it was a financial distance, doesn't mean that it needed to have money in it. And to think of it, the guy did not even think about money when he was making his own choice as well, because the way I presented the other idea, it made sense to him that people will understand it better. I didn't have to have Ethereum in that, no, or have Bitcoin in that logo, no, but he still sold the idea, even with the 3 rectangles that were there, you understand? So, and then it's usable and versatile in almost every other thing. When you have icons, say if it's a car brand and you are putting car, does Kia have car in their logo? Now you need to also look at the characteristics and of that people do. I mean, the world best designers in this life, they don't put objects in it, and there's a reason for that. So I think that should sell the idea already that, I mean, you don't have to. You don't have to.
All right, so thank you so very much, everybody. So thank you so much for your time. We thank everybody for coming. Please, if you still have another question, we're still trying to give room for 1 or 2 more questions, because you cannot have an extensive session like this without being able to ask questions. So if you have any other questions, please do. Thank you so much, Bolutife, for doing everything you can for allowing us go through your thought process. So usually whenever we bring in designers to take us through trainings, one of the reasons why we do this basically is so that we can understand thought processes, because for some designers in the community, they already know how to use these tools. Their problem is just that little X factor, which you've just brought. We call it the S factor. You just brought that into the game. So I'm sure a lot of guys will be like, OMG, I've been doing things wrongly. This has not been done properly. I've not been asking the right question. I've not been doing this. I've not been doing that. And man, you really addressed everything from A to B to Z. I call it end-to-end processes, thought processes of how to come. And I know that there's still more that you actually didn't share, but basically it's a way to start with. This is a way to start with. All right, so in the absence of any question from the attendees, thank you so much for your time. I've dropped Ms. Bolutife's social media handle for those watching on YouTube. I'm going to be dropping it on the link below, basically for you to check. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Tife, so do you have one final word to share with the people before we round up this?
Oh, yes, I do. Yes, I do. So on a final note, thank you guys actually for sticking around. I think a lot of people are still on the call, and I'm surprised. I thought we'll have just like 5 people or 4 people left, because I mean, it's a long session. So that shows how intentional you guys are. And I'm very grateful for that and for listening to me, such a small girl. And then my final words would be to all of these things that we've talked about. I mean, it was very important that I opened your eyes to everything, to processes, to things that you've not been doing before. But like I also mentioned before, it's important that you believe in your own process now and create your own process, right? So all of these things, if you look at other people, other designers, that their processes might be, slightly different, nothing drastically changing. I mean, we all follow like a guideline or a rule or something that, you know, there are principles that must be followed, right? But create your own, do as much research, the way you've heard from me, try and see other people and gather it together and make it your own. Like, then create your own process, make it work for you. I mentioned on Twitter, I think some days ago, when I was, you know, I was just goofing around and saying I'm probably the fastest designer you know, and it sparked off some conversation where, I mean, young designers thought that they were beating themselves up really because they felt like they were not that fast and they were slow and all of that. So I mean, I engaged some of the people in the conversation. I was like, no, it comes with time, you know. So you don't have to rush yourself. You need to, I mean, you don't have to be perfect, really. You're a person, so you don't have to come off as perfect. People relate with people that they are personable with, they're related, that are relatable, and you know, that they can enjoy their presence around, basically. So be yourself in your journey. Don't stop learning. It's good to keep practicing. Practice got me here, really, because I told you when I started as well, I was doing a lot of things wrong, but because I was learning, I was asking questions, and I kept practicing. When people had logos to do and all of that, I volunteered to do it so that I can keep engaging myself on things. And I read a lot. I watch videos a lot, you know, to engage in latest trends and everything. So all of this, and all of this, it is important to, I mean, craft your own workflow and be good at what you do, really. Have all the information that you need so that, you know, when people challenge or engage you with in your own field, you are not being clueless. You have to be on point. Read and learn, you know, as much as you can. And I know we're all going to be great one day.
Well, you're already great, basically, based on what I've seen here. So great work, great work. Super impressed. Trust me, super impressed. Learning a lot. Learned a lot today.
So
Thank God some members of my team are here, so they know some things are going to be changing in the company first thing Monday morning. And they're all hearing me right now. So thank you so much. You practically did a great job executing what we needed to learn about brand identity. So I believe that you have all learned a lot today in today's session. Thank you so much for your time. Like I always say in every session, that irrespective of the fact that this is a free session, time is the currency that has been given to us to achieve our purpose on earth. Despite the fact that this is a free event, the free currency you have given is the time that you've shared. So do everything you can to ensure that what you've learned right now doesn't just stop here. You practice, you keep practicing, and you keep practicing, basically. Tifa, thank you so much for your time. We know that you're busy. Most times when I want to reach out to you, I know sometimes I'll drop a message, you'll respond to the next day. I understand. Busy woman. You're not I'm so sorry, Sam. I'm just seeing your message, yada yada yada, and all that. Just super busy woman. So I know what it takes for her to spend 2.5 hours just with us, especially when Monday morning is tomorrow, and I'm sure she has some presentation that she really needs to play out tonight before Monday morning. 8 o'clock. It's really 8 o'clock. Like all the clients just start sending you messages and emails. So what about that one? What about that update? 8 o'clock. Once it's 8 o'clock, your phone just start buzzing, and you're like, "Come on, guys, break." The meetings back to back. There was a particular moment I was trying to reach out to her. I think she had meetings back to back. She didn't respond to me, like I think around 1 o'clock, basically. So that's how busy she is. So thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate everything you've ever done. You've done for us, the community. Really thank you so much. So thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching this session. Like I always say, keep maintaining the ACE factor. Do everything you can to cause an impact as a designer. Keep creating those fantastic products and services that you do for your clients. And please keep always improving yourself in this creative journey. ACE Academy and ACE Creative Community is there to guide you. Bolutife is one of our members and also one of the mentors that we have in the community that hardly talks sometimes, but she gets one or two of our little sound bites here and there once in a while. And it's great to be able to now pull from our wealth of knowledge to see the information she can give. So thank you so much for coming, everybody. Thank you so much for attending. By tomorrow, this particular video is going to be on our social, on our YouTube, so you can watch it all over again. And do have a lovely day. Please keep winning and have a wonderful 2023. We believe that between now and next year, where we're going to be having a new year back-to-back session, you will have grown your business to the next level. Now, don't forget, everything continues in the community. So for the people that are watching on YouTube, we've dropped the link to our community down there. Every second Sunday of the month, we're going to be having, it's going to be called It's Unscripted, where we're going to be criticizing people's work. And every last Sunday of the month, we're going to be criticizing people's work, but we'll also be bringing people like Bolutife to come and also speak to us. Thank you so much for your time. Tife, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I learned a lot from you. So have a lovely day and do have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful week ahead. Keep winning.
All right, cheers. Bye, guys.